Well, it's nice you took her home. Press decline on your phone. Left me crying all alone.
Hey everyone, it's Mikayla. So today I'm going to be making a video on why honey is not vegan. Honey is one of the most commonly mistaken products as being vegan, and a lot of people are uneducated on the bee industry or don't really understand why something like honey could not be vegan. I hear a lot of the words, it's healthy for you so it has to be vegan, or like the bees don't get harmed. So if you're one of those people who don't quite understand why honey is not classified a vegan product, please continue watching this video and hopefully I change your mind by the end of it. Before I get into this video, please make sure you hit that subscribe button. If you want to see more videos like this, make sure you let me know and I will do that. So obviously the first thing that I'm going to say is bees do not make their honey for us. Bees make their honey for themselves, and I feel like that's pretty self-explanatory, but a lot of people don't realize that, and a lot of people are in denial that honeybees make their honey for just themselves. A lot of people think that honeybees make their bees for everyone, that everyone can have their honey, you know, everyone can have their food that they make and spend hours making, you know what I mean? So if you're somebody who has a vegan lifestyle, not just a vegan diet, you would understand that veganism isn't just about cruelty, it's also about getting rid of as much exploitation as possible. Therefore, the harvestment of honey does not correlate with the definition of veganism. If you search up veganism defined on Google, the definition that comes up is a person who does not eat or use animal products. I'll get into why honey is considered an animal product further down into this video, but it's a very simplistic definition and it covers a lot of areas. Honey is a bee's single source of nutrients during the poorer weather and the colder weather because it is so high in essential nutrients, fats and vitamins. One single honeybee will visit up to 1,500 flowers in a day just to be able to fill its tiny little stomach with nectar. So if you can imagine the size of a honeybee or a European honeybee, imagine how small their stomachs really are, and imagine how many flowers 1,500 flowers are just for a bee. Yeah, that's a lot of work. That's a lot of work just to get a tiny bit of nectar. So if you didn't already know this, honeybees have a second stomach where the nectar goes into and starts getting broken down by enzymes, I'm pretty sure. So their second stomach, which is called the honey stomach, is used to break down the nectar into honey. After that process has been done, it is then chewed up and thrown up by the house bees in order to complete the honey making process. So if you can imagine all that work that these bees have to go through just for that tiny little stomach that they have. So as you probably already know this, the hive works together as a team to be able to supply each bee with an adequate amount of honey. So an adequate amount of food for them. One single bee in its whole entire lifetime makes up to 1/12 of a teaspoon of honey. So if you can imagine how small a teaspoon is and how small the 1/12 of a teaspoon is, yeah, that's a very small amount of honey. And you can imagine when walking into the supermarkets how big those jars of honey. That's a lot of bees, you know, that's a lot of lifetimes, you know. That is a lot of farming. So when farmers remove the honey from the beehive, they replace it with a sugar substitute, which is incredibly bad for a bee's health, considering it lacks all the nutrients, the oils, not the oils, the fats and the vitamins. And sugar pretty much has none of that. So bees actually get pretty malnutritioned and they can get sick, they can die, they can just have really poor health in general. They cannot be happy. After the honey's been taken from the hive by farmers, the bees then try to replace all that honey that has been stolen or missing, because some of the time they don't see it go missing, so they exhaust themselves trying to replace all that honey gone. That would be pretty tiring if you ask me. And of course we can't forget the removal process of the honey being taken from the hive by farmers. When a bee tries to sting a farmer, whether it succeeds or not, it dies. Because as we all know, bees die after they sting someone. And that's not veganism, okay? So once a bee stings a farmer, its life has been taken. Which, if you're someone who claims that you care about animals, that simple sentence should automatically stop you from eating honey. So honeybees are specifically bred for production purposes, so they're literally being used to produce honey, and they're being incredibly overworked obviously, because once their honey goes missing they exhaust themselves trying to find and replace that honey, and it can be extremely tiring for a bee, honestly. Queen bees often have their wings clipped as well so they don't fly off and try and make a new colony somewhere else, because after all, their honey's being taken. Why would they want to be somewhere where their honey's just randomly going missing? They want to go find a new colony and live a happier, healthier life, if you know what I mean. So once again, that sentence with the queen bees getting their wings clipped so they don't fly off and don't leave the hive, that should automatically stop you from consuming honey if you are vegan. Obviously, any form of cruelty, whether that be milking a cow or taking a chicken's eggs, it's the same thing with honey. So it's still an animal byproduct, therefore you shouldn't be consuming it if you're vegan. They clip the wings of the queen bee because if they didn't, then the queen bee would fly off, therefore decreasing productivity and lessen their profit. So unlike bees, us humans can thrive off of not consuming honey, and therefore why we shouldn't if we care about animals, you know. If we care about animal equality and just animals in general, and you're vegan for the animals like I am for myself, then consuming honey is not okay, in my opinion. I can understand if you're misinformed or you're uneducated on the topic, because I wasn't consuming honey, but I definitely did not know about the bee industry until I actually looked into it, and I spent quite a couple of hours actually looking into it. So yeah, that pretty much concludes this video. I'm sorry if this video was really long. It's just I had a lot of information that I wanted to get out in this video because somebody I saw the other day who was consuming honey, I asked them if they were still vegan, and they said honey's healthy and the bees don't get harmed. And people really need to be educated on the bee industry because honey is not vegan, and it's the most commonly mistaken product as being vegan, and you know, that's totally fine. If you're not educated, that's totally fine, but just make sure you educate yourself and don't get defensive when I tell you that it's not vegan and why it's not vegan, because a lot of people get really defensive and I don't want to come off as rude, but I'm just trying to educate you. So yeah, that concludes this video. I already said that once. Am I really actually going to go? Probably not. No, I'm just kidding. So I'm gonna go now. Bye.